Hi, you're listening to This Is Not Your Practice Life. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friends. I'm a certified life and emotional intelligence coach. And if you really want to step into your highest self, there are a few non-negotiables you're going to have to learn, and I am just the person to help you do it. No matter your past, I'm here to help you create a more fulfilling future. So stick around with me. Not only will I teach you how to navigate your brain's daily mind drama, but I'll help you actually understand your mind, your emotions, why you do the things you do, and why others do the things they do. Most importantly, I'll help you build the self-awareness skills to create whatever results you want. It's never too late to change the trajectory of your life. After all, this is not your practice life. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. I am thrilled to have you here, whether you are a brand new listener, welcome, or a returning listener. As always, thank you so much for being here. If you are brand new, I hope that you get everything that you came for and more. I highly recommend after you listen to an episode that resonates with you that you go back to the beginning, because a lot of the episodes build upon one another. You don't have to do it that way, but it tends to help you build a lot of skills by the time you get through them all. So I have a lot of people that will find an episode title that resonates with them, and then they will go back to the beginning and they will just take the whole journey and they gain a lot from it. So again, it's not something you have to do, but it seems to serve my audience well whenever they have the interest in doing that. So welcome to the podcast. All right. Let's get into today's episode. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but if I have, it's time to talk about it again because it's been coming up a good amount for my coaching clients. So I want to make sure that I address it on the podcast. I don't think it'll be a lengthy episode. I think it's going to be a lot of value in a short amount of time, but I do think it's an important thing to discuss, and that is why we want other people to change, or why we want people that are involved in our life to change. So I'm sure that you've had this experience. I know that there have been times where I have definitely had this experience, especially pre-coaching and pre-healing, the way that I've healed over the last 8 years. I would focus so much of my time and energy around the people that I was upset with and the things that bothered me about them and why I wanted them to change. And I spent a lot of my energy allowing their personality traits, their actions, their behaviors, their thinking to negatively impact my own life and my ability to move forward powerfully in my life. I very much felt impacted and bogged down when people didn't show up the way that I wanted them to show up. And I imagine that this is not just a me thing, because I'm not a unicorn. I tell my clients all the time, you're not a unicorn. A lot of times the things that you're experiencing, there's other people who are experiencing very similar, if not identical, sometimes things as well. And I think all of us can agree with the fact that there has probably been at least one person, at least one time in our life, if not multiple times and multiple people, where we've had the thought, if they would just change, life would be so much easier. Sometimes it's, if they would just change XYZ, our marriage could flourish. If they would just change XYZ, my relationship with my parents would be incredible. My relationship with my kids, my relationship with exes that you're co-parenting with, your relationship with coworkers, your relationship with a boss, with a best friend that you love, but maybe there's some things going on, right? All of us have more than likely been in this place where we feel added additional stress because it seems like there should be an easy solution, and it seems like the easiest solution would be for the person. I'm just going to be blunt because this is how we usually think about it. We think of them as maybe sometimes being a pain in our rear. We think if they would just change, things would be better. And I want to talk about why we get into this mentality. We may even be on the receiving end of this where someone is really trying to change us and you're just showing up as you're being yourself, and you don't find that it's really a problem. Maybe you really love who you are and you've done a lot of work on yourself, and you feel great about your life, but there's certain people in your life that just don't like you. They don't accept the ways that you show up. They're constantly maybe nagging you about things you need to change and things you need to be different about. And I just want you to think about how it feels when you're on the receiving end of this, in case you want to take that level of awareness into how you navigate, how this shows up for you when it's about other people and you're not on the receiving end of it. Okay, so let's talk about, why do we want oftentimes other people to change? Whether that is changing a certain behavior, changing certain things about them, certain things that they do. Why do we want this? And I'm going to give you the most honest and true answer that doesn't always feel good when it hits us, but it's usually the case, okay? I'm not going to say 100% of the time because I'm sure there are other options, but what I see the most in clients and what I experience the most within myself of why I wanted other people to change was to eliminate my own hurts, okay? So for instance, I have had some of this coming up even in my brain recently with the health of certain family members. I have some family members that are not in the greatest health, and a lot of the reason why is because of decisions that they've made about their lifestyle and how they're choosing to live and what they're choosing to eat and not do to take care of themselves. And it is frustrating to watch as a bystander and to also be somewhat of a caregiver as much as I can when I'm with them, and to just see the stubbornness that exists in, yeah, this is the result that I'm getting and I'm sick and I'm not well, but oh well. Like, that's the mentality. And so I do have thoughts. I catch myself. I like to be honest with my podcast audience, because I'm human too. I do have thoughts like, God, I just wish you would change. Like, I wish that you cared. I wish that you wanted to feel better. I wish that wanting actually translated into doing something different. And that, I wish that you wouldn't complain so much and then suffer the consequences of choosing to do the same thing over and over again, and then want to blame, everybody else for it, or, I don't know, continue this cycle of just self-sabotage. Like, I wish that they would change it. But here's the sneaky aspect of the human mind. It's two things. It's one, that yes, we may see something that someone is doing, a behavior that they have, a personality trait, whatever, and see that or assume that it's problematic and want them to change it. And we think a lot of times it's for their best interest, like it's in the best interest for them. But the sneaky thing about the human mind is that it can be very self-serving, and it looks for ways that people can change, or outside circumstances beyond our control, I might add, should change in order to make sure we aren't uncomfortable and that we don't suffer and that we don't experience things we don't want to experience. So the thing about it is, it's like if we look at this family circumstance that, my family is kind of living through with a lot of illness and sickness and not wanting to change certain things and making decisions that brought them here, it's like I logically and empathetically can say, I wish you would change because I don't want you to hurt. I don't want you to suffer. I don't want you to be sick. I don't want you to experience the things that you're experiencing, or it to potentially be worse than it already is. There's that level. But if you dig a little bit further, when you're feeling a lot of discomfort around someone else's actions and you're feeling very negatively impacted and you're really like frustrated that they're not changing the things that they're doing or who they are, with certain aspects, the overarching message that's actually happening is I don't want me to hurt. I don't want me to suffer. I don't want me experiencing this level of discomfort and pain. And the deeper message underneath that is I haven't learned how to cope with this. That being my hurts, my feelings, my discomfort. I don't know what to do with it. So if you, pointing to the person that it feels like it's coming from, if you just change, ultimately what the mind is telling us is if they change, or AKA if you change, then I get to feel better without having to do any work on myself. Okay? This is why we are very much driven by wanting other people to change. I want my mom to change. I want my dad to change. I want my ex to change. I want my current partner to change. I want my sisters to change, my brothers to change, my friends, my, aunts, uncles, coworkers, boss. I want them to change. So again, let's ask about what's underneath that. Why do you want them so badly to change? Again, that surface level, empathetic, not going too deep a lot of times is like, well, because they're making their life harder, or they're suffering, or they're self-sabotaging, or you can insert whatever reasons for it. But if you go deeper inside of why you feel so emotionally charged by who someone else is being, it oftentimes comes back to how it makes you feel because of what you're thinking about their behavior or what you're feeling in regards to their behavior or by watching it. And your brain, its job is to protect you. Your brain's job is to make sure you're comfortable. And so when your brain is uncomfortable, it says, what's the source of this discomfort? And if you were to go bing, 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 and like point to the source of that thing, right, which is usually external, it goes, we need that thing, that source, to change some things around, and then we'll be healed and we'll be better and we'll feel better and we won't have to stress anymore and we won't have to feel uncomfortable and we won't have to get stuck in our own self-sabotage. Like if this outside source will just change things, everything will be better. Okay? This is what the human mind does. And of course it does this because then you don't have to work on your own stuff. You don't have to face your own shadows. You don't have to face your own inner work. You don't have to face what is so problematic about what is happening in the first place. You don't have to address anything and heal it. You don't have to set boundaries. You don't have to do your work. So the biggest thing I think you need to ask yourself, and I ask myself these things too, is what work do I have to do within me in order to avoid trying to change someone else? This was huge for me 8 years ago when I first hired my coach, because I came to my coach a very sad, defeated, very angry young woman. I was 24 years old. I felt like I literally could not get a grip on my life, and really my life was just beginning at 24, but for me it literally felt over. And it felt over because I had collected years and years and years and years and years of things in childhood that were so hurtful, traumatic at times, discouraging, lonely, frustrating, upsetting. And I could point the fingers, at exactly the people who did it. And for a long time, I lived in the self-torture of, I wish that this person would change. I wish that that person would change. I hate what they've done. I hate what they've said. I can't believe they treated me this way, us this way. I can't believe this. Like, why? And I really felt, it sounds silly now being 8 years out of this, but at the time, it felt like I didn't even know how to put one foot in front of the other to create a life I wanted. I didn't even think that I didn't even think I could create a life that felt good without other people changing, especially the people who hurt me most. Because I think in my brain then, I thought that I was forever broken. Like, I had this perception, like, I'm very broken. I feel broken spirited, and I don't know, like, this has weighed so heavily on me. I don't know what I want. I don't know who I am. I don't know where to go from here. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel at all. And what I really wanted was to feel safety, and I wanted to feel love, and I wanted it from the people who weren't capable of giving it, who just didn't have the capacity to give it, the awareness to give it, the emotional intelligence to ever provide it. And I was stuck in this loophole of thinking, if they never give it to me, if they never help heal the hurts, if they never say sorry, if they never change, I'm going to feel this way for the rest of my life. I'm going to feel this out of control. I'm going to feel this broken. I'm going to feel this upset. Like, my future is determined by them changing. That's really what I thought. Like, it's so profound to me to be 8 years out of this and to think that I really did believe that to my bones. Like, that I felt that caged by other people's unique lived experiences and who they were as people and how I was treated. Because I didn't know how to treat myself. I didn't know how to feel my own feelings. I didn't know how to go inward. I didn't know how to coach myself. I didn't know how the mind worked. I didn't know the reasons for my behavior. There was so much I didn't know. And it was easier to ask, of someone else to change and to go do work on themselves rather than focus on the work I need to do on myself. And maybe this is where you are. And this is oftentimes also why other people ask change of us, right? Is that to do their own work and to learn how to set boundaries or stop people pleasing or speak their truth or stand up for themselves, they oftentimes will want to outsource that power to the very person that's not acting the way that they want or behaving the way that they want or giving them what they want. And this is exactly what I did. I just totally tried to hand off all of my own work into the hands of someone who was never going to do the work possibly, right? So the next question is, what do you think you would feel if they changed? And you're looking for emotions that you think you would feel if they changed. So like, I used to always tell my coach, I would feel relief. I would feel so much relief if these people would just change. If these people would say sorry to me. If these people would be who I've needed them to be my entire life, I would feel so much relief. I would feel so much love. And you know what my work was that I wasn't facing for myself? You can probably guess it. How to create my own relief. How to create my own love without needing someone else to do that for me. And was it painful? Yes. Was it hard? Yes. Did I like looking inside of myself and doing that work? No, in the moment, in the process, it did not feel good. It was like, my God, I'm doing all of this work to heal like hurts that other people caused. And if they would be doing this work, they probably would have never caused it, right? So the last thing you want to ask yourself is, how can I create those feelings for myself? So like relief or love or whatever your answer was to the previous question, how can I create those feelings for myself without them changing anything? So maybe this is an ex that you are having to co-parent with. Maybe it's a current spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend, and you're just like, oh my gosh, if they would change this, and that, I would feel all of these things. What if instead of asking for them to change, you figured out why you want that change so bad? What do you think you would feel if they changed those things? And how can you make sure you provide that for yourself? Now, I'm sure that somebody's listening to this episode and they're probably like, but Macy, isn't it totally appropriate to ask someone to change some things if it's not working? For example, let's say that you are trying to communicate with your spouse, and the spouse that you've been with, when they communicate, they tend to raise their voice. And they tell you that they raise their voice because that's how they were raised. In their household, their parents always raise their voice. And in your household, maybe that wasn't the case. You all talked to each other very calmly, or maybe you all also raised your voice and that's how you grew up, but you have learned your boundary around that's not how I want to talk to people, and it's not how I want to be talked to. So let's say that the spouse raises their voice and you're just thinking, God, I wish they would change that. I really wish they would change how they talk and communicate with me. And so if you're asking, but Macy, what about circumstances like that whenever you are communicating something that you feel is problematic and you know that it needs to be communicated in your relationship? Do you just expect do you just expect that you never talk to someone about it and you don't ask anything of them? You don't bring it to their awareness? And my answer for that is absolutely bring it to their awareness. Do communicate, do speak up. The difference is, rather than have the expectation that they have to change in order for you to feel better, always remember that we cannot force people to be different than who they are. We can ask that of them. We can point out things and bring things to their awareness and say, hey, when you do this, it really bothers me because ... Or, when you say things like this is how I interpret that, and this is how it makes me feel. Tell me more about what you mean. Of course, we don't want to be a wallflower that never speaks up for ourselves or communicates anything. That is not what this episode is about. This episode is about recognizing how much of your power you give away and why you actually want them to change. And many times it is self-serving in the sense of, I want to feel better about this relationship, or I want to feel better about the choices I've made, or I want to feel better about what I am tolerating on a daily basis. And so if this person changed, I'd be happy. If this person changed, I'd be content. If this person changed, I'd feel more relaxed. Right? We have these conditions almost where it's on a conditional basis, if this person acted differently, then conditionally I would feel differently. And what I'm encouraging you to do is recognize that creating those emotions within yourself, or figuring out what is being triggered within yourself and how to heal that within yourself without needing them to change, is more important overall, because it's going to tell you how you proceed. And sometimes that may be, for instance, if we're talking about the raised voice, it may be that you have to learn how to set boundaries and how to be assertive. So for instance, if you go to someone and say, hey, I don't want to communicate with each other in a way in which we're raising our voice. I don't like it. It feels disrespectful to me. I just want to ask that when we communicate with each other, we're not raising our voice, that we can do it in a calm, respectful manner. And if we're not ready to do it in a calm, respectful manner, that we give each other space until we can do that. You are allowed to ask for whatever you need, but you have to remember that that doesn't mean other people have to change, okay? Or that they're going to. So then you have to know, how am I going to take care of myself if what I receive after speaking up or communicating isn't what I thought it would be or what I wanted it to be? How, instead of continuing to give them my power and wishing and hoping that they would change, do I make sure I take my power back? And what that might look like is, again, you have to heal yourself enough to say, you know what? I'm going to set some firm boundaries. And not only am I going to set the boundaries, I'm going to make sure I honor them. So if you go to them and you say something like, hey, I know we talked recently about the fact that we're not going to raise our voice at each other, or that I don't like when we raise our voice at each other. I really in order to have these tough conversations, it's really important that we're able to do it in a respectful manner. So if you raise your voice, I'm just going to walk away and we're not going to get to finish the conversation, or I'm going to hang up the phone and we're going to have to resume at another time when we're both calm, because I do not want to tolerate anybody raising their voice at me. And this sounds easy when when I'm rattling it off, right? But for people who've not learned how to be assertive and how to stand up for themselves and how to stop people pleasing and how to say what they need and then honor whatever they need to do for themselves, when people haven't learned that, stuff like this feels really hard. But that is your work. That work is what I mean is more important and powerful than trying to get someone to change. Okay? So for instance, again, I'll give another example. If you have, let's say, a girlfriend, and this girlfriend is always dating these loser guys that treat her like crap, you can talk to her until you're blue in the face and say gosh, I just wish that you would stop doing this. I wish you would change this pattern of yours where you're attracting all these guys, because you always end up hurt. And I hate seeing you hurt. And think about what's underlying underneath that. I hate when I hurt watching you hurt. I hate how I feel constantly preaching to you and you not taking any of the input, and then I watch it over and over again. It makes me feel uncomfortable, or it makes me feel sad, right? So you think about what you start feeling. So then your work, rather than constantly trying to get that girlfriend to change her relationships around men, dysfunctional men, instead your work is to say, why do I keep allowing myself to give so much emotional power away to her behavior? And what do I need to do for myself to take care of myself? And maybe that is telling the friend, I am cheering you on that you find the love of your life, but I just really can't be the person that you're venting to all the time about how these guys treat you, because it makes me feel so sad for you. And it stresses me out to hear how you're allowing yourself to be treated. And so for my own mental health, I just can't, I don't have the capacity for it. I want to be here for you and cheering you on. But when you're doing this over and over and over again, it starts to feel a little bit exhausting, right? And I'm not saying you have to say it like that. There's probably much better ways to say it, than how I'm rattling this off just off the top of my head. But sometimes that's more important of how do I take care of me and how do I communicate speaking up for myself without the expectation that someone else has to change who they are and all of their behavior in order to make sure I'm good. How can I make sure that I'm good without needing someone else to change? Because when we're trying to get other people to change, we're ultimately giving all of our power to them. Okay? What we want instead is to turn inward and say, I need to find my own power in this. So what do I need to do in order to find that? And then honor it within myself. Okay? So I hope that this episode helps you. I thought it was going to be a little shorter, but you know me, I get on my tangents. So I hope that you found this episode useful. And if you're struggling with any of this and you need help with this in your life, just remember you can always schedule a free 1-hour consult at MacyRenee.com. You can find all that information in the show notes, and I'd be happy to help you. All right, have a great week. See you soon. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. If you'd like to connect on social media, you can find me on both Instagram and Facebook at Macy Renee Coaching. And if you want to stay up to date on all of my offers, announcements, and inspirational emails, you can join my email list at MacyRenee.com. In addition, if there's a way that I can further support you in your coaching journey, you can schedule a free 60-minute consult at MacyRenee.com anytime you want so we can discuss the best options for you. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.